Committee. It is Tuesday, October 8th. We have a quorum present here, and we are certified and compliant with open meetings laws. Only staff.
We're starting, guys.
No worries. Only staff that's here, so we don't have any public comment, unless anybody wants to make a comment. No? All right. Got some communications up about the Emmy solar panel progress.
This is just informational for you. We included in the packet for both council and finance, the pictures that they'd shown, which I thought were impressive with all the solar panels on the roof. They have submitted documentation to us showing that they're going to be spending $1.848 million, which is more than the $1.8 million that was required to get full monies. We've already submitted their $1.0 million payment. They've acknowledged receipt. And then the next contractual payment is $150,000, which we've already set in accounts payable to pay on the 17th. And then we owe them another $50,000 when they tell me their project is complete. We've gotten some requests for any things built with bonds. And this was one of the projects that Tim submitted to the league, which goes on to the legislators. So everything looks good to me.
And those are like drone pictures, not renderings.
Yep. At
least from the building point of view.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That's a lot of panels up there. So, do you remember what they anticipated? What percentage that was going energy that was going to be for their building?
I do not remember that.
Anyway, we can look that back up.
Yeah, there's a memo on that.
Yeah.
They're also going to be doing some ground level ones, and I think they talked about putting some on over picnic tables too. So they're not completed with their work. I don't know if they've activated this yet or not. They're working with showing utilities to set a date. I don't know if that's been completed yet.
Would be surprised if they have a ribbon cutting for that, and why not?
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal, and I was asked to participate on a webinar with Whipstream. They were the nonprofit that we work with to do our building needs assessment for energy. They did walkthroughs with 7 communities, so it was one of them in Dane County. So that'll be coming up here in a few weeks. Putting together presentations for that, and it's kind of interesting because you don't really think about all the sustainability things that you do. But I ended up with 37 slides worth.
Oh, wow.
You know, if we start thinking about some of the projects that we've done in the past or we're currently doing, including our building, we have done a good job, and it's been recognized by our peers.
Yeah, every bit helps in that. I think, wasn't it the public works solar array was the largest prior, I believe? Is this one larger, or I don't remember? Anyway.
This one I think is probably pretty close, if not larger. And then we're working on this building here. They've been down here working, I believe, Josh, haven't they?
Yep, we just had them look at our electrical panels so that they can get the parts ordered. They're anticipating installation of panels to be in December timeframe.
Maybe it'll be 70 degrees out. Never know.
Yeah, they use Wisconsin.
Probably. I mean, if you're winter sports, no, that's a good deal.
We've had communications with the assessor that they don't really add value to the buildings with solar panels, but I'm going to forward this one to them because with that large of an array, we're spending $1.8 million. Hopefully that increases the assessed value of the building a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it is that, well, it's added infrastructure regardless.
Right.
That should put something onto the value for it. Okay, anybody have any other questions on that one? All right, thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Next up, we've got, would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September 24th meeting.
Or
Motion
second,
by Greg, second by Lisa. Any edits or questions about those minutes? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All the same.
All right, Ozzy abstain on that one. Okay, the ayes have it. I got lost in procedure. So minutes are approved from September 24th. Then we go into the discussion and possible action on the budget.
Tim, do you want me to go through the slides?
Either way,
I'll let you then.
all right.
Okay, we're basically just gonna go through the slides with the blue borders, because that's where something changed. So next page, please. Okay, the mill rates, do not change, from the last calculation. It's still going up by 5%. However, I updated this. I looked online to find the average home value on the Google machine, and average home this year is $357, so it's gonna add $226 to average homes property taxes.
average or median, do you know?
I did a Google search, Stoughton, Wisconsin, average home value, and that's what came up.
Which is up dramatically from just a few years ago. They were
Sure.
always under 300,000.
So,
Between the new homes going up and then, rising values on the existing stock, we've really gone up quite a bit. All the Dane County homes have.
any questions on that at all? Kind of straightforward. Next slide, please, Tim. Nicole Marie was nice enough to prepare this graph showing where the mill rate is. The city of Stoughton is the more bottom line, and we stayed fairly, consistent throughout the years. But as you notice, the mill rate for the combined taxes with the school districts and so forth, that has been dropping in recent years. So, any questions on this at all?
And that's basically dropping because of the spending limits that are imposed upon us.
Correct. As long as the basically the inflation or increased values on the home is at a higher percentage than what we have for the increase in that new construction, it is going to drop every year because of that. Now we went up a little bit because we had debt service. I anticipate it's going to go up with the school referendum that passed recently. So there's always, as I've said before, devils in the detail, but it's basically property values going up. That's against the restrictive net new construction levy limit.
Our concern is we just don't really believe that financially this is sustainable for us to be able to provide the level of services that we currently enjoy. So,
What it costs outstrip what we're able to gain in funding.
right. And it's not unique to Stoughton.
Yeah.
There's 4 communities going to referendum in November and another one going home field tax. So that's 5 communities in Dane County. So it's starting to become a thing.
The steady mill rate was one of the reasons that drew me into deciding to move into Stoughton was, that it kept in a pretty tight range and you could buy a decent amount of home for that and not have that much taxation.
Next slide, please. No change here. So next slide. And again, no change in the operational levy. Tim, did you want to talk about the allowed levy increase?
Yeah, so if you look at the chart here, this is kind of shows our budget here and our net new construction. And you can see where we're allowed our levy increase, and you can see that this next year, I mean, the year that just ended, our net new construction went up at just over 3.5%. And according to the levy worksheet that we've been working on, that gets us an additional $130,000 that we can levy. And we know that our costs on health insurance alone for the premiums have gone up. I believe it was 170,000. But if you compare that to last year, we grew at about 2%, and our net new construction was 156, and the year before that it was 243, and it went up 186. So Dave has been doing some investigating, and we believe that there's something going on with the levy limit worksheet based on Act 12, which is a law change that went into effect that regards personal property tax for businesses. And in the past, basically the businesses had to pay personal property tax to the municipalities, and the legislators decided after years of being lobbied that they were going to waive that, but they would make municipalities whole. And we're not so sure they did that on their worksheet. So Dave has reached out to our lobby group to find out, what happened, because if you just look at it at face value, our allowed levy increase should have went up more than last year and even more than 2023. And that's not how it's coming out on our worksheet right now. So we're concerned about that. We flagged that. We're waiting for a response. That will get us closer, to having a balanced budget without going into our rainy day fund, basically. Anything you want to add?
No, I thought you covered it well.
Any questions on that?
Do you have any idea when, this has got to be important for other communities too. Are they like hurrying up with the response or?
Well, when we sent it to Tony and Jerry at the league, they said they were going to contact revenue. As Tim pointed out, we've got to have the budget adopted by November 15th by statute, like every other local government. So I'm going to be prodding the league tomorrow to say, where are we at? We're kind of up against the wall here to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I did talk to another municipality today, and that municipality wasn't really aware that this might be a problem. They weren't as far along in the budgeting process as we were. And I know Dave's been online looking at what some of his peers are saying, and I don't know if it's conclusive of what.
No, it isn't. I've had people saying that, oh, well, we were made reimbursed in full for the property tax change. But I admit we got 154,000 in extra revenue, but that 154,000 in extra revenue meant our levy could go up only 130. The way the levy limited worksheet is set up, I've got a gut feel that when they did Act 12 to change the property taxes, they did not think about the effect of the calculations on the levy limit worksheet.
So we don't know if it's a clerical thing or if it's a legislative thing. So we're trying to figure that out, because if it's a legislative thing, we're going to push for them to fix that like ASAP. If it's a worksheet thing, that should be easily fixed, because the worksheet is exactly the same one as last year.
Yep.
So they didn't change it, and they probably should have to accommodate for that change in the law. At least that's what I'm hoping.
So am I. Any other questions? Okay, next slide, please. There was nothing new added here. Next, please. Nothing new here. Next, please. And nothing new here. Next, please. Nothing new here. Okay, since the last time, AJ said, let's take the near site clinic in Edgerton out of the budget. So that was a reduction in 29,000 in expenditures compared to what we had before. Other than that, there's no changes here for the steps taken. Next, please.
A question, what is a near site clinic in Edgerton?
So the near site clinic in Edgerton is a site that we're able to use. We get charged on a monthly rate to use that. And what it does is it takes the experience that we have, which is what drives our cost of our healthcare. If you've ever heard the word modification factor, it takes that experience and removes it from our courts plan. So the goal is that it would drive down our overall renewal costs on our courts plan and move it to this more economical site. So the name of it is near site. The school district uses it as well. And it's a really good mechanism to reduce the overall cost on your plan. But with the $30,000 and us being in the infant stages, I think it makes most sense at this point due to low utilization and it not factoring into our courts renewal this year that we remove that expenditure.
And AJ is still doing some work on the insurance. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so our renewal right now sits at 12.9%, which is right in market. There were some things that we pointed out to the courts underwriters. We're trying to get them to ratchet that down. I told Tim my goal is to get it to 10%. And at this point, we're still at 12.9, but I have another meeting coming up with courts to talk with their team.
Yeah, and if it ends up staying at 12.9, right now we have 10 in the budget. We estimate it's about $50,000, that we'd have to overcome. So, things are starting to trickle in, but we don't have all the information yet, so we're not in the panic mode. We're gonna figure out a way to get this thing to the finish line, and as we said at the last meeting, if there is a deficit, feel comfortable taking it out of our undesignated fund balance for at least next year. And then we can figure out what our long-term plans will be after that. And some of that will be determined on what comes out of the next 2 year state budget. We're hoping that as other municipalities are facing this situation and starting to go to referendum, that maybe the legislators will recognize that this isn't just a one-off here and there, and municipalities are being managed well. We do want to be able to provide good services and do it cost effectively for our community, especially when we're growing. I mean, that's the whole idea of the net new construction is to give you incentive to grow. And the unfortunate reality for us is even with the record growth, we haven't been able to balance our budget because of the rising costs that we don't control. And we also need additional staffing to accommodate that growth. So the levy limit formula really doesn't provide us that opportunity in its current state.
And usually part of what you have to be balancing is city share, if, whatever the cost increases, city share and employee share, and that's all part of your conversation as well, right?
Correct. We are looking at, we're also in the midst of union negotiations. So that's factoring in here as well. So until we have the final numbers from courts, everything's kind of a bunch of balls in the air right now.
Okay, next slide, please. So the fund balance applied to the tax levy, it's now 169,803. We need to double check a couple numbers, but that might go down by a whopping $2,000. And we've still got the 85,000 put there for retirement payouts coming from the assigned fund balance. I've got the 600,000 ERP adjustment in there. I don't want to put anything more in writing. We've got the expenditure restraint program that basically says your expenses in the property tax funds can only go up by the CPI plus 80% of net new construction. We are 675,000 under the levy limit. I'm sorry, under the expenditure restraint program maximum. So I added 600,000 to give us a lot of wiggle room in case we need it next year. So that basically says increase expenditures by 600,000, increase fund balance applied by 600,000. It's never going to get spent because we're never going to have that expense. The only drawback to this is we have to explain it to Moody's because they're going to look at the amount of fund balance applied. I can explain it, but I just wanted to bring it up to you as the finance committee to make sure that you were okay with this adjustment.
That won't have any effect on credit ratings or bond.
Again, for Moody's, you know, they're going to look at it, but I can give them documentation of the paperwork for it, and I'll basically explain this is a phantom accounting entry that'll never happen.
And we still have that healthy fund balance, which they look at. We'll be over our policy. They also look at our debt. We do pay it back fairly aggressively, so that helps. We're hoping that we're going to have a rating improve a notch this year. And really what kept us back was some debt gift districts. We're going to be in a much better position out in the business park with the addition of M.E. Roth. The RDA is working with a potential developer. On the RDA side, we hope that comes to fruition. So if we can get that righted down there, I think we'll be in a much better financial shape on our gift district. All the rest of them have performed well.
And the one,
Basically, 5 railroad corridor and 8 riverfront development that are dragging us down.
and so the 169.8, that is our shortfall at the moment.
At the moment, as I said, we're probably going to be able to put it down another $2,000. So I guess in round figures, you can say 170,000.
And then we'll see what happens with the personal property tax that was deducted out of our net construction. I mean, if that goes the way we think it should, we'll be right in the ballpark.
Right. But I'm going worst case scenario just in case. Any questions on this topic?
And if that insurance does come back in at 12.9, then that's gonna bump this 170 up by whatever that
Oh,
difference is.
50,000, yeah.
And I'm calling it might be closer to 40, 45 because stormwater's in there and EMS.
So,
So there's some things that are off the levy.
yeah, we've been hovering right around that 200,000 we were paid
All right,
since we started this process.
And when AJ would, with the negotiation, you really have to pull the trigger on the, figuring something out now with the insurance. When, I mean, are you on a deadline that you have to just figure it out with courts, but you don't want to wait till December?
No, what I
31st?
did is I backed into our budget adoption, so they know by the end of next week, I need to know where we're
Okay.
at. But I've been pushing more aggressively this week, just in case we have to start doing other things with the plan.
Next slide, please. No changes for the next few slides here. So you can keep going till you see a blue border, Tim. The only thing we changed on that page is the amount of fund balance applied.
Well, the wording is changed. The picture is not changed. Pretend the picture's changed. So the picture still says 180, but we got it down to 169. So, but the picture still illustrates what will happen the next few years if we continue to use it. And there's assumptions that are included.
Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're just into the property tax funds as opposed to citywide. So there's no change on this slide for the projections. Okay, next please then, Tim. Okay, Now, this section is set up, I've got the graph first, and then the, summary data after it. But as you can see, our revenue for the property tax funds, 40, or you're talking 45% roughly for property tax. That is our largest revenue source. And when we're limited in levy increase, that's what really hurts us. Any questions on this topic at all? Okay, and again, here's just the detailed data. Nothing that I really wanted to bring out as important to talk about at this point. Next, please. Again, this is the just for operating where we spend it. Similar to other local governments, police is by far our number one expense. The police department has very little revenue compared to the expenditures. So practically the entire department is on the tax levy. Any questions here? Oh, okay. And again, here's just the detail. Next page. And so I just put the entire property tax, including debt. Yeah, we have a lot of debt. Nobody brings that up. We try and working with Ellers to keep that flat. We did jump up with the amount of debt we issued in whatever it was, June of this year, about $3 million more than we've had in the past, which does increase our interest payments and some principal. But after debt, you've got public safety, and then you got a large drop going from about 35 to 40% down to roughly 15 to 18%. So by far, public safety is where we spend the most money. No shock to anybody on that one.
And the thing about the debt service is even though the amount has gone up, our percentage hasn't changed a lot because our value has gone up as well.
Right. This is the first year that our debt levy has really taken a spike, but we anticipated that with the amount of debt that we approved in the CIP.
Yeah, we've been pretty aggressive trying to, upgrade the roads, the park, any building maintenance that needs to be done. So this is what it looks like when you do that.
Yeah, I still think we're at like what, about 3%-ish, or we're still like 4% under what our policy even states.
Yeah.
Last number I saw, we were at 2.5%.
Our policy is 4% and the state law is 5%.
Yeah.
So we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But yeah, we certainly would like to pay it off, especially with the interest rates going up. But at some point, there will probably be an opportunity to refinance. I know they looked at that.
They look at it every year. We probably won't refinance for probably 7-8 years until debt issue 2024A is callable. That's callable in 7 years. So I think that's when we'll probably refinance. Rates have been so low for so long. If we would refinance, it would be at a higher interest rate, which there's no sense doing.
Yeah. Similar to what some of the homeowners are experiencing right now. Those that would want maybe to buy a new house, one of the determining factors is interest rates, and it's hard to give up a good interest rate when you're moving into a new home. But hopefully the rates will settle back down. I don't know if they'll ever get down. People I talked to today when I was doing a housing tour don't feel it'll ever be down to 3% again. That felt like that was a once in a lifetime deal, and it stayed there for a long time. The pandemic helped keep it down as well.
And I've got a scanned copy at home for my father-in-law's home in the 90s. He was at about 7% interest on a home loan. And that gentleman was very frugal, so he probably got the best rate he could. So the rates look high compared to what we've had the last decade, but I think we're back at the new norm, but yeah. Next, please. Again, this is just the data for that prior slide, nothing I really wanted to bring up. Next, please. This is just looking at the categories of expenditures, and again, we're just talking those areas that are on the property tax levy. Wages and benefits is by far the largest area, and operating expenses is everything else. That's your Microsoft or Google subscriptions. That's the cost of books in the library. That is the insurance premiums, not health, that are going up. That is the cost of PP&E for the fire department. So it's all going up.
Yeah, if you look at the wages, benefits, I think it's over 70%, which is not unusual for a municipality. But one of the challenges have been is to recruit and retain staff because the labor market is so competitive. I mean, I'm thrilled with the staff that we've had and the job that HR has done, being able to recruit and retain staff. It's just unbelievable that we're not going to put us in good a shape as we can, especially with our police officers. There's communities right now that are short, handfuls of officers right now because they can't hire and retain them. So,
Those are our neighboring communities.
yeah, I mean, so kudos for you guys for the support that you've given us to be able to make the necessary adjustments. I wish the state would give us the same flexibility you guys have, but we're going to work on that more.
Okay, Tim, if you can go to the next graph then. One more page. Oh, I guess I didn't graph this. So when I was looking at the expenditures for the operating levy, this is just the breakdown of where it is, and by far the general fund is the biggest area. This is all funds by themselves, so that's why you see library, opera house, and the others listed separately because we keep them in different special revenue funds for a variety of reasons. Any questions at all on this slide? Guess not, we're on the next. Okay. So before I go anywhere else, that is the operating levy, which we're basically constrained how much we want to go up. Is there anything that you would like us to change in what we've done?
No change, but I still have the same question that I had last time when we were in the 11th hour.
Okay.
And I know we already made the decision, but so the special assessment
Mhm.
that we're not going to be collecting anymore. So I
Right.
know that's a capital expenditure, but then when people would write their checks back in, those were going into that special assessment fund, right? Which
Correct.
is operational, right?
Well, that was a separate special revenue fund, and we closed the
Right.
special assessments fund into the construction fund because it all relates to road construction.
Right.
So it's all staying within the same area. None of it went into the general fund at all. In fact, the general fund lost, I think it was 36,000 in revenue from payment plan fees or interest that we've lost on it. And we've made that up in this budget. So general fund's not gaining anything from closing special assessments. It's the construction fund, which offsets the cost of what we issue for debt for road or street construction.
So the end result is, help me understand that we're either going to need to spend more money, on capital, or, to do the same number of projects potentially, or do fewer projects if we need to keep that
Correct.
300,000.
Yeah, that 300,000, we either issue debt or do less repairs. And so the I think the council was pretty adamant, we don't want to charge special assessments because it was a vote of 10-0 at the time. So that's why I put the remaining payment plan revenues to the construction fund to help that out. But yes, we are going to issue 300 more in debt every year, and that's going to go up with construction prices.
Just wanted to make sure I was clear about that, so.
Okay. So let's go into citywide. By far, our biggest category is capital outlay. Or when you issue debt of $8 million a year for capital items, that's pretty evident for it. But then every other structure is the same. Wages is the top expense there after capital outlay. So that would include EMS and stormwater utility, and then all the special revenue funds that are not on the tax levy. For instance, shared ride services. That's a bad example. They are on the tax levy. Going to blank. What else? Landmarks Commission is closed.
You talking like garbage pickup?
Garbage pickup. Yeah, that's a good one. Garbage pickup is off the levy too. I'm having trouble. The Bailey Sister Cemetery. It's a real small fund. It's off the tax levy, so that's included in here now also. Any questions on this?
That's still in there?
That's still in there, yeah.
It's been there for decades.
Probably. And unless I've got some more documentation, I have to assume that the corpus, well, I don't have any direction as to whether the corporate has to stay intact or not, but I haven't seen any physical documents saying what it should be used for other than maintenance of the Bailey Sisters.
Right.
And as you said, it's probably 20 to 30 years.
At least.
At least.
Next graph then, please. This is just the breakdown of the prior graph. Next, please. No surprise, health insurance is by far our biggest cost. After that is FICA taxes, WRS protective and WRS general, and then everything else. So we have a very good health insurance plan, but it does cost us money. It also is there to help retain people and attract people. So I'm certainly not advocating to make a change.
Yeah, one trend that's happened the last several years is we had several positions that were job shared, and they ended up becoming full-time positions because we couldn't recruit part-time employees. And that's another area where the state really doesn't take those things into consideration, but those are real costs when you start adding health insurance and WRS and, you know, those types of things for those positions. But we have to do that in order to be able to staff our departments.
Next graph then, please. And again, this is just the data for the prior graph. Next slide, please. Okay. For the CIP, we did add the environmental remediation for TID 8 in, and a couple things in TID 8. Wagon Wheel Way, I don't know if that's going to be the final road name, but we're going to be putting in the road in that Riverside development area so that that cost is completely out of the developers. And I put in a complete swag of $1.2 million for each of the environmental remediation areas. We still don't have numbers from True North, so your guess is as good as mine, but I've got something in there because it actually sounds like we will be doing something, if nothing else, at the former DPW site.
Yeah, and Chris is in communication, trying to get the updated information because the RDA needs that information anyway. So we're hoping to have that by the time they have their regular meeting, which I believe is the next week,
2 weeks from
2 weeks from tomorrow.
So they won't have.
No,
Well,
they
there,
won't have it.
tomorrow's a special meeting.
Yeah, they call a special meeting tomorrow, but some of the information they need, we just don't have yet, and this is one of them. And there's some other things too on the engineering of the road. I think she had some conversations today. I don't know if she has final numbers for Wagon Wheel Way and the other one off of South Street. So some of this stuff, you know, we're just waiting on other folks to provide us. Everybody's busy. We're really noticing that a lot of the vendors that we deal with are struggling right now because they're facing their own labor situations. A lot of people that, you know, aged out, retired, and then they're backfilling. We've seen that, you know, from our engineers to the DNR to just construction crews. You probably have had a few emails and phone calls on projects. Those are all contributing factors that are beyond our control.
You see, the only good part with that one, with the remediation is probably fuel costs have gone down on when they have to haul away, but the tipping fees, I'm sure, have probably gone up over.
Gas prices jumped up from when I left work about 4:30 to when I drove here at 5:30. Went from 308 to 319 on Main Street, so.
They're 40 cents cheaper in Madison, which I think is ridiculous.
How is it?
Yeah,
I've
but
seen
gas
20
40
cents.
cents cheaper in Madison than.
Yeah, you go to Woodland?
No, I went to a little gas station on Willie Street or Atwood, one of the two.
And these numbers will fluctuate as we get more information.
Well,
You know, and ultimately we'll have to bid some of this out, so.
we'll bid it out, but I have to have something in the budget
Right.
at this point.
And it'll also depend on what the site plan ends up looking like, you know, based on what the developer proposes and what the RDA and city council and planning commission ultimately approve.
You know, for sure, are they sharing the former green plan with that new developer?
They're working with the same architect.
Okay,
I think that's an indication that,
pretty similar.
Next slide, please. I think you went backwards.
that
Okay, so carry forwards. As the finance committee knows, in past practice, it was that the finance committee approved the carry forwards on CIP plan. But that wasn't following Wisconsin statute. So this past year in, I believe it was March, we did the carry forwards from 23 to 24 in a separate resolution. My experience at every other place I've worked at is those carry forward requests come in as part of the budget process if the people know that they're going to be spending, or they won't be able to spend it in 24, they want to spend it in 25. So I asked the departments to give me all that information. Bottom line, the construction fund and capital outlay fund have substantial unspent bond proceeds that we're using to pay this. I'm going from memory, it's about $3 million.
How did that happen?
One of the slides in the future will shows what it is. Honestly, the biggest is Park and Rec area. Next slide, please. So this just breaks down where we are spending all the numbers. And as you can see, there is a substantial difference between the adopted 24 and the mayor proposed 25. And that's due to a lot of the carry forwards. Part of that is that $9.2 million, $3.2 million is the remediation and Wagon Works ways. So, you know, those are two completely different things. But you got roughly $6.2 million more, or $6 million more in expenditures. Like I said, I do have a slide showing where it's kind of coming from. Next, please. I don't think that, this is just for the capital projects fund by itself, which is not the road construction. It's going up, or the, debt proceeds are actually going up roughly $2 million between the 2 years. But again, this was, things that the ad hoc, CIP committee had already, dealt with. Next slide, please. And feel free to interrupt me with questions. I'm going kind of fast so we can kind of fly through things here. This is showing the fund balance applied, and it is substantial for the capital project fund, $6.4 million, as I said prior to this. Next slide, please. So here's all the carry forwards requests for 23. So this page is just public works related. And as you can see, that department's about $1.2 million by itself. The construction at 0.7 million, it's not out of line just because you're going to have retainages and things change too. So, and then they've got another $0.2 million for replacing a bucket truck that last I had heard is going to be coming in early 25. But again, this is just the detail of what's being carried forward. The library tuck pointing wasn't completed in 24. They're looking to complete it in 25. Oh, and I'm sorry, these are 23 projects that we haven't completed yet. So next page. These are the 24 projects that we haven't completed yet. And there is a lot on there, but if you look in the lower right, recreation programs, they are looking to spend $6.9 million for what they anticipate hasn't been completed yet. We are going to have to spend more time looking at the fund balances in the CIP, the capital projects and construction. We shouldn't be carrying those types of balances. I had handed out a page here on paper. If you look at the second line from the bottom, actual fund balance 12/21 of 23, construction fund $3.6 million. The non-major governmental funds is misleading because the capital outlay is included with a lot of other funds like library and everything else. So that's misleading. But just looking at construction by itself, $3.6 million, we should not be having that kind of money. Looking at the debt service fund, which is the second column, it's almost $1 million. I am proposing in the 25 budget that we do not issue debt for the fees for Ellers and Moody's, all those rating agency fees and stuff, and using fund balance for that, just trying to work it down. Any questions at all on this slide? So again,
I just have a quick question.
sure.
In 23, it showed the tuck pointing at 60,000,
Mhm.
and then in 24, it went up to 100. Is there
That-
more being done?
Well, they looked at it in 23 and said we only need 60. And then we realized in 24, we needed more. So now it's the sum of the two, which should be 200,000 if I can add in my head. And last I had been told, we're not going to complete it in 24, so now we're carrying it forward into 25.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And you can see that a lot of this is really, there's a lot of ambitious projects that
Yeah.
are put in the CIP that we're hoping to get done. But we just don't have enough hours in the day to get everything
Sure.
done. So I think one of the things we're gonna have to look at in our future CIPs is what can we realistically do in a given year?
Absolutely.
And I think everybody is really trying to be ambitious and get things done, but you know, we need more people to do it, and, you know, that's not an option right now.
We're paying interest expense on money that we're just putting in our savings account for a year.
Yeah.
And then part of it has been delays, especially on the riverfront, that
Yeah.
are beyond our control. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and vent on it, but, you know,
We do have one permit.
yeah, we do have one permit, we are making progress. But it's been kind of a slow go down there. And then with turning over the development to the new one, you know, that's gonna delay something, but we're, you know, we're optimistic that this one will hopefully get to the finish line.
This one's always these carryovers like this were always like one of the most troublesome things since chairing this committee was, well, I first was on here, we have things that were back from like 2013.
Yeah.
Just long time frame.
Right.
Either that's gotta drop off, that's something going or something. But, anyway, we got a plan to look at and figure it
Right.
out.
So I guess I'm gonna stop at this point. Do you, as the finance committee, have any concerns with doing the carry forwards as part of the adopted budget? Otherwise, we're just gonna do it in March anyway.
No, I don't think that's probably a good place to have a discussion about.
I think so. Right, yeah, just to, you know, elucidate what all the things are on the list and bring it forward.
Right, I knew when I would say, I want to carry forward, you know, $8.6 million, you'd be like, what? That's why I've got the detail here.
Yeah.
And this is the department giving me their, requests at this point.
I think when we have heard others that don't fit in this committee and they get to see all the nitty gritty of this sort of thing, you kind of lose track of like, oh, you know, we're looking at this budget here where, you know, half the time you're like, I'm still working on 23, I'm in 24 and I'm looking at 25. So you're looking at three different things.
Yeah, I don't know what year I'm at this time of year.
But at least, you know, we keep an eye on where all those details are in there. So, but I think they get lost in council sometimes.
Next slide, please, Tim. We've got a few things that are not on the levy to just highlight here. Nothing changed for stormwater. I'm still proposing to keep the rates the same in 25 as we had in 24. Next slide, please. And we've got a net position that's been growing there too, so we may want to look at keeping the rates flat for a while too. Refuse, John's proposal came in at 2.4. I'm saying let's go up by 1.2%, cutting in half. Again, we've got a high fund balance for the refuse fund, and considering the revenue is practically guaranteed because it'll go on the tax roll if they don't pay it, I'm not concerned about getting the revenue. I may be off a little by estimating how many garbage cans are getting picked up, but I can't be that far off the rest of the estimate. Next slide. And I did not update this slide, but we could go up by 6.6 increase in the expenditure restraint. So that's where that 600,000 came in. And I've got nothing new on next steps. You know, we had talked about the whether we should be going to referendum or not. So that'll be a topic that we're going to be introducing to the council as a whole. But that's really it for my budget. Or the mayor's recommended budget, I should say.
Save the best slide for last.
And I love the gift, or gift, however you pronounce it. Any questions from anybody at all?
The one sitting on the floor with the hand. Has his hand, that's
Yeah, days like that.
It's a lot of up and down. It's like, we thought we found 160,000 in one day, and then we lost 330 the next day. It's like, hey,
So like the stock.
yeah, but I know there's been some department heads here, both in person and online listening. I appreciate you showing up. Again, with the operation of the lobby, there's not much we can change, but in the 2 minutes we have left, if you have questions for any of the department heads, I'm not sure what they want to highlight themselves.
I think finance has done a remarkable job in getting this where it's at. And, you know, shaving down whatever we can, and then the department heads also pitching in on finding every last dime, so.
It's a team effort, and, you know, if they give me their requested budget, I go through it somewhat with a fine-tooth comb at times, but it's like for the departments that look at my recommended budget or my reviewed budget, I may have added something to the levy for your department and taken it else somewhere, you know, just trying to refine it as close as we get. We've been trying to not use the catch-all operational expense account where everything was thrown in there and you can analyze it and figure, well, where you get cuts. We're trying to be consistent between departments so that we know where we're spending the money. So Nicole Marie has been a welcome addition to the office. She's doing great. She's helped me get to where we're at right now. So, and I thank the finance committee for allowing us to not have special committee of the whole meetings to discuss the budget. It is appreciated. Council also approved it, but I think it worked out well this year.
I'm happy we don't have to hear it 3 times then.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have any last questions on these proposals?
Technically, it's the mayor's, but I put a lot of things in. I give him updates on everything. He'll make a few changes here or there, but
We just spend most of our time just bouncing stuff back and forth from us, trying to figure out creative ways to get things, you know, down to a manageable level. And it's been, every year we come up with 1 or 2 things, but it feels like we're kind of running out of, you know, tricks in the hat. So see where it goes from here, but you know, I think we're in a pretty good position. I'm happy that we can retain all of our staff and we don't have, you know, stuff to be held over our head right now. So hopefully we'll make some progress with the state. If not, we'll adapt.
And we're not scrambling with a referendum at the last minute, so.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how we could get a referendum this quickly. I think next November would be the absolute earliest. And that might be being very optimistic.
Yeah, I'll be pushing it in. All right, if no last questions on there, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Ozzy, and who was the second? Patrick? Any other questions? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.